Cowboys talking the latest around CeeDee Lamb and his contract negotiations. Jerry Jones was asked before the Cowboys preseason game yesterday about his all-pro wide receiver, and believe it or not, he said, you know what, I will talk to the media and let me give you my thoughts. Okay, so I think what he was saying there at the end is you're missed, but we wouldn't be playing you in this specific game anyway. So tonight you're not missed, but holistically you are missed. I think that's the Jerry translation. By the way, go ahead.
I think it's more like, hey, you're missed, but not missed enough to pay you the amount of money that you wanted to get paid. We don't miss you that much.
Coach Mangini, obviously here. Greg Jennings here. Wild's be back tomorrow. Greg, start with you. Whose side are you on in this right now, Jerry or CeeDee's?
I'm with CeeDee Lamb. Like, there comes a point in time, like, you have kids, Coach, you have kids, I have kids. We all have been a kid, and we've all heard this. Actions speak louder than words. Like, you can tell me, there's only so many times I can say, oh, Nick, I'll show up, I'll be there, I'll be there. But if I never come,
correct. Yeah.
Eventually you're not going to ask me any longer. You're not going to even want me to come because it's like my actions have shown I'm not reliable.
It's a weird
they don't
example
match
for a
up.
guy who skipped my wedding to make
it is
sure.
a little bit.
Go ahead,
But I didn't tell you I was coming. And I happened to be there in the city.
But he happened to be in Kansas City during my wedding. Just had something else going on. But I understand your point. I got it. Go ahead.
Like for me, when you continue to talk about how much you appreciate a guy and how much he values CeeDee Lamb and what he means to this offense, and then you don't line that up and pair that with saying, okay, you know what, we're going to pay you because I know how valuable you are. I know how much I appreciate you. And mind you, this is the owner who controls this. Like, he can pay.
It's not like it's a GM who has to say one thing but knows the owner won't give him the money.
This is the person that CeeDee's listening to saying all this stuff, and he's like, you keep telling me this. But the only thing that I will respond to right now is the dollar signs that you end up telling me match what the value is that you're telling me also that you can appreciate out of me. So for me, I'm all about CeeDee Lamb on this one, and he's deserving of it. With what he was able to do this year, what he is in the National Football League as far as his rankings in terms of where he fits in that wide receiver list of hierarchy, he's right up there deserving of a big payday.
Yeah, and I'm with Greg on this. I know you're going to be surprised by that, Nick, but I do think there's something to the don't tell me you love me, show me you love me, okay? And the fifth-year option was designed to give the team the ability, if you draft a guy in the first round, to have the rights to him for that extra year at a wage that's supposed to be comparable to what his peers are getting. But the reality is not many players in general play out that fifth year in the fifth-year option. And the other fifth-year option receiver right now is Brandon Ayuk, and we know what's going on with him. So from a league perspective, it's not realistic because guys aren't getting that fifth year as first-rounders. So that's one precedent. That's the league precedent. And then from the Cowboys precedent, after Dak's third year, he held out. Okay, so he holds out after his third year and gets the biggest contract ever for a running back. So the Dallas,
Zeke did.
Not Dak,
yes.
Zeke.
Yeah.
He gets the biggest contract ever. So from a Dallas Cowboys precedent, they've established that they're willing to pay guys earlier. So now with CeeDee, he's actually played through the full 4 years, a year further than Zeke played out, and he wants to get paid. So there's a league precedent and there's a Cowboys precedent that both say those guys should get paid. So I get where CeeDee's coming from.
This is one of the most baffling contract disputes I can remember. Almost any other one of these, there has been a part of me where I'm like, okay, I kind of get why there is a conflict here. I'll just stick with wide receivers for a minute. T. Higgins in Cincinnati. I totally understand what's going on there. What's going on there is they're like, man, we paid Joe. We're going to have to pay Jamar.
Yep.
Can we have the three highest paid guys on our team be quarterback, wide receiver, wide receiver? Probably not, and so we can't do it. All right, got it. Brandon Ayuk situation. It seems like the Niners valued him at a number. The market then exploded. They're like, we're already paying Debo. We've already invested this much in a running back, a tight end, left tackle. We can't go higher. And I think also we think you're a really good player, but not a number one at your position like CeeDee might be. And so that one, at least I understand to a degree. This one I don't get at all. It is a player that is coming off his best season of his career. That's similar to Ayuk. But at a position where you have no one else. Like, if we put last year's numbers for CeeDee Lamb against everyone else currently on the Cowboys, combined into one super player, they're worse than CeeDee Lamb. Measurably worse across the board, except for total touchdowns, where they're even. That's 7 dudes.
Yeah.
And so I don't think CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the league. I do think he might be the most indispensable skill position player in the league, given the context of his team.
Yep.
So,
Well, to add to that context, when the other group is producing at that level, which isn't very impressive, it's taking no pressure off of CeeDee.
Correct.
So everybody then is paying that's that level of production, with him being the only person you really have to stop. So, which makes it even more significant in terms of what his contribution was.
Very quickly before we move on, I just want your perspective on this, Greg, and maybe the answer might just be no, not at all. But Jerry's comments make it seem like practice/training camp doesn't matter at all. It's like, oh, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be playing in this game anyway. We think you're going to be here by week 1, so what does it matter? For a receiver at that point in his career, if he shows up the day before or the 3 days before the first game of the year, do you expect him to be as sharp as he would had he shown up today?
No. There's no way you can emulate the timing, the route running, the level of stamina that you're going to have to sustain throughout a four-quarter game. Again, alluding to what we just talked about, the value that he provides this team. He is the driving force of this offense. It's not, okay, we have a running game that we're going to support him with, or our quarterback is going to disperse the ball to 5 other guys, and that's not the case with the Dallas Cowboys. It is CeeDee Lamb, and then others jump on board.
And then it's also, you're missing the work in the pads, which takes some getting used to, the work against defensive backs, the work against different coverages, whatever the new installs have been, whatever they've added to the offense, and really getting an understanding of how that fits, what the adjustments are. There's a lot of levels to it. To just go in cold and expect to operate at a high level,
it just seems crazy for a player that I'm certain they're going to pay. It just seems like I don't think there's any scenario where they don't pay this player, so to have it not done is crazy to me. All right, let's move on to the quarterback for a moment. Dak had a summer Friday sitting out of practice due to ankle soreness. Remember, this was the same ankle that he was wearing the walking boot on for the deep sea fishing. That was a big story. Man, that was a slow July day. I think Dak's deep sea fishing walking boot led the show. Prescott said he'll be back out there at tomorrow's practice. Doesn't seem to be too big of an issue. Coach, in your opinion, how much pressure is on Dak this season?
I don't think very much pressure is on him at all.
Totally agree.
And here's why. Is if he just plays like he's been playing, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
And when he has added pressure to his game, that's where he's gotten in trouble and throwing all those picks. And that was the year that he had, 15, and it was the outlier of his career. But if we can pull up last year's numbers, they're pretty incredible. Look, he's first in the league in completion percentage, pass TDs, and then go right on down, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So if he just plays anywhere close to that, he's in line for a big contract, if not from Dallas, from somebody else. The other thing that he's got to get over is how teams are going to look at his performance in the playoffs. And that's going to be a big decision from an organization that brings him in as to whether or not that's something that is indicative that he can't perform in those moments, or he just hasn't been in the right situation.
I look at this slightly different. From the standpoint of the pressure that is on him, if he desires to remain the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback in 2025, a ton of pressure. We all know he's a really good quarterback. If he continues to play, like you said, this way, he's going to get a contract somewhere. I don't believe there's anything he can do in this uniform, in the regular season. He can be the MVP. And if he throws a dud in the postseason,
they move on.
They have to move on because we've seen this. We've seen Dak Prescott play at high levels in the regular season as it pertains to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not speaking moving forward
Sure.
and any other team acquiring his.
Well, I think that's why they haven't signed him.
Correct.
Is because of this exact
But I think
concern.
as it appears from that standpoint, yes, there's an immense amount of pressure on Dak Prescott.
So I think that's actually a good way to look at it because I'm gonna sound like I'm wiggling out of the question, but I agree with both of you 100% because I think that you're right that I don't buy this, the Cowboys have presented Dak with a contract. I'm sure they have, but I think they have presented him with a contract they know he won't take. Because I think they want to see what he looks like this year before they decide he is going to be our quarterback at record-breaking money for the next 4 years. So there is a world where he has a year very similar to last year, maybe not MVP contender, but a good year. They win 10, 11, 12 games. He's bad in the playoffs. They're like, you know what? We need to turn the page. But in that world, he still gets $60 million from someone else. Like that's so where I say I wrote no pressure as far as what Dak is playing for this year is his next contract going to be $60 million a year? Or is his next contract going to be $70 million a year? Because he's going to be a 31-year-old free agent quarterback, but that could mean going elsewhere
Correct.
as opposed to playing for the Cowboys.
Which is why I believe he's setting himself up, preparing himself mentally, which is if we go back a few weeks and listen to what he said in one of the after practice press conferences of, there's been great quarterbacks that have had to move on. So he's preparing himself for that departure.
I just think it's going to be hard for them to evaluate. They've got the coach on a one-year contract. They've got the quarterback, in a let's see. And then they said they were going to go all in, and they haven't done anything. So if it doesn't go well this year, whose fault is it?
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.